That's what design means, personality.
One of the things that I've said to everybody is when they get very particular about the little things like, I don't like that plant, I don't like that. You're not supposed to love everything because everything is not supposed to be the star.
It makes it come together. Design should always show someone's personality. So it could be beautiful, it could be in a space that's just stunning and magazine worthy. But if it doesn't speak to the person and the person living in the space, it's not design.
So what do you think is going to be the biggest trend that we're going to see in 2025 this year?
There's a lot, but black.
Wow. Okay.
I
Go
know.
for it.
I know. You weren't expecting that.
I was not at all.
No, at all. Usually I do a lot of color.
Yeah.
And so for me to say black is the next trend is quite a big deal. But yeah.
For so long, we were in this gray field, grays and
Gray
neutrals and all of that
It's definitely played out.
played out.
Yeah,
Well,
no grays.
we thought about that for a while.
No grays. Ivories maybe, but a lot of black, a lot of cognac.
Okay.
And when I say black though, and I'm talking about painting walls black, adding slats, adding, a, if you have a black wall, you still can do a black couch. Just kind of bringing that. It's, I think if people think of it as such a scary color to use, but it's a color.
Yep.
And it's sexy, it's
Sophisticated.
and it can still be cozy and warm at the same time. So, yeah, that's my favorite trend.
Wow. That actually.
I know. You weren't expecting me to say that.
No, I like when you
Jaimie's
when I
gonna say pink.
when I talk about Jaimie, it's the bright fusion of color
Wow.
that I love seeing and love seeing how you put it all together
Right.
and then always being fashion forward, not only in your clothing, but then also in the same sense
Yeah.
of fashion and furniture. You always have that same sort of dialed in aspect
Yeah.
to it. So to hear you, yes, say black is
And I love,
the change.
color's always gonna be I love adding that pop of color. Like we've got to do that.
Yeah.
But if we're doing black, the pop of color, that can actually be your pop color. Or we can add the cognac in there or an ivory and just kind of.
So do you think that it's actually going to stay more kind of neutral, monochromatic,
I think
that kind of
so.
aspects as
So
well?
right now I've been doing a lot of monochromatic and it's sexy. And when I say monochromatic, you're layering text. It's not just flat finishes. So you're doing textures and different finishes in everything. And so
Okay.
it could be black or beige or, any color that you're using, but you're mixing it up by adding textures and different levels of, on the ceilings or wood slats, wallpaper, dimension, just kind of adding depth.
So like a gloss and a matte kind of in the same
Yeah.
room
Yeah.
and bringing those two concepts
Because a
together.
gloss in, an ivory color versus a matte and ivory,
Yeah.
they look like two different. You and I both know this. They look like two different colors.
Yeah, I can definitely see what you mean by that. And then would you also bring that aspect in if you're staying in the monochromatic field? Would you also bring in mixtures of material with the metals, like adding in a
Yes.
gold or a silver or chrome? You know how we go through the phases of where we're having gold fixtures or we're having antique bronze or we're doing all high chrome gloss or brushed nickel,
Right.
which, is probably also very
That's what
tired.
everyone. It is tired.
Yeah.
It's been used, overused. With that though, I think mixing those metals. So just you've got this room and you've got a monochromatic palette, but then mixing the metals, you're bringing in different colors, and you can have brass, a soft brass. You can have and maybe a chrome, but like black on legs on the sofa. Just kind of adding in the mixed metals.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. How would you do that? So somebody says you can mix metals in a room, and there's ways that can look hideous.
Yes.
Especially
Okay.
if they're right next to each
Right.
other. So, for example, like kitchen, and somebody says, my faucet is gold. Can I put on black handles?
Yes.
Can I do?
Absolutely can.
Okay.
You absolutely can. I wouldn't, if we have that faucet that's like this bright gold, and then you're trying to add like a bright chrome on the handles, I probably wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
It's a little,
What about the light fixtures then? Alternative, like with that? So if you've got, a lot of gold, even if you do gold on the faucet, all your hardware
Right.
is gold.
Yeah.
Would you stay consistent then with that? Is it more room specific? And then you can bring in your mixed color in the metal in, say, the legs of a table,
Right.
or bringing in just a smaller aspect that has a different finish to it.
Yes and no. So if we're staying on a matte finish light fixture, and then we're doing a gold in the cabinet handles, and it's still a matte gold, I feel like they could still work.
Okay.
If we're going, changing like gloss, like if we're going high gloss on the handles and then doing these, the light fixtures matte, I think that might be a little bit too much mixing. But outside of that, yes, definitely. When you move rooms, you can go and do, chrome in the next room. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I wouldn't just do chrome in one room and then there's brass all over the rest of the house. But if you're mixing it throughout, I think it looks good.
And also, if you alternatively then bring in some pieces that maybe have both of them, like a black and a gold and a little bit of a chrome accent or something like that, then that transition flows more nicely, as you go through the whole room, still encompassing the whole space. Right?
So the best example when I think of mixing metals is our favorite brand, Catalan.
Yeah.
I feel like their finishes, whether it's their chrome, I don't think they have chrome, but more of like their pewter finish.
Yeah, they have that titanium.
Titanium.
Gorgeous,
Yes.
yeah.
And then their brass. But putting them next to each other, so if our table has the titanium on it, and then we've got our credenza that has the brass finish, I feel like they flow because the way they finished both of those metals out still go together.
In that same aspect of being able to mix and match things, you've got plenty of rooms that you see or that customers see that you or clients see that they love the look of the room and they feel like that all goes together, but it's per se maybe styled by a specific vendor, as you call it. So like Howland, all in one room, or Archetypo or Henge,
Right.
are all kind of put together in one space. Because a lot of those designers specifically have a specific style as
Right.
they go through, how do you combine those also in a space to give that person the comfort level and the look all together without it looking, like it was planned or designed by the same designer?
Right. For me, that's where I feel like Cantoni is, and all of the vendors that you guys carry have a consistency in a sense. So they're all on the high luxury level. And so if I'm using a bed from Henge and then I'm using Archetypo nightstands, we can still make them work together because they're I want to say they're still on the same, luxury level. They all have an elegance. And I'll also say that I'm not a big fan of using one designer, one vendor in one room because then it does look staged.
Yeah.
It's planned. It looks like you bought it out of a catalog, and we don't want that. Obviously, in our showrooms, you guys, it is all Henge or all Catalan or
Galati.
Galati all in one room.
Mhm.
But I, and that's one of my biggest things with clients. Like, I want you to know we don't have to just because they have it set up like that. We don't have to do that. We can go in and get, we can pick that bed, and I will find you some nightstands from somewhere else, and make it kind of look more. It'll still flow, and I think that's what clients kind of get afraid of. They're like, well, how's that going to look good if we don't have the matching nightstand? Yes, or the matching dining chairs that they had on the floor. And
They want to work with a designer, and the designer that is the expert, and the reason
Right.
why we hire you or ask your opinion or work with you, and because we know that you have the experience and how to bring that all together.
Right.
But you have the client that says, I just have to see it all together. So that's why it's very easy for them to go into a room and say,
I want this
okay,
here.
this looks nice.
Yeah.
Or they see a picture on a website or on Facebook and they say, I like the way that looks. I will take that.
Yeah.
And they don't know how to really kind of open their mind
Right.
and broaden their aspect of what the design can be. How do you overcome that with them?
Definitely a challenge. It's probably one of my hardest challenges. And I understand that. You're spending the money, so sometimes you want to see it or you want to sit on it. But that's when I have to come in and tell my clients, you hired me to put this together for you. So I don't want to give you something where you could have walked into a showroom and purchased it yourself. So let us go in and customize these pieces for you. And then they're like, custom? Like, we don't want to do custom.
Like that, yeah.
One is like, oh my God, that's expensive. And no, custom does not necessarily just mean it's expensive. It's just not on the floor or the color. We're going to change it and we're going to make it work to your space.
Most of the items are custom though. Already.
All of them.
They were already
Yes.
just chosen
Chosen
by a different designer
Right.
for, the specific space that it was shown in. So they are built custom. So it's not necessarily indicative of the price.
All of these pieces, we can select different fabrics and select different materials and colors and all of that. But that's where I have to kind of just tell my clients, just a little trust. Just trust us. That's why you have us, to give you this final product that is just exclusive for your house. Some of the items we can pick off the showroom floor, but then other pieces, let us kind of design those for your space specifically, or your personality, or your, what I see fitting my client's space. It's trust. It comes down to that. And then just kind of letting us use our knowledge and what we know will work in that space.
And so use that same sort of trust aspect when it comes to things as far as I need to sit in it. I need to feel comfortable in it. I
Right.
need to know that I can relax in it, those kind of things.
Right.
And that's where I know myself personally that I do also want to feel comfortable in it
Right.
because if it showed up in my house and I
And you want
spent a lot of money on it and I wasn't comfortable in it, then I would be upset. But how does that play into the trust aspect then also? Like how do you navigate that? Like when you take somebody into our showroom and or any showroom for that matter,
Right.
and you say, it's this sofa sits just the same
Right.
as the one that I selected for you. It's got the same interior makeup. It's got the same foam, the same seat depth, all into the above. How do you have that conversation with people? You can still have that comfort and let that design creativity come out
Right.
for their space.
Initially, when we start working with our clients, we'll take them into just a showroom just to see what they kind of like strikes interest to them and where they go sit. And they're like, oh, I like this. I don't like this. Or, oh, that's a pretty color. Or this one's too deep. And so I'll do that. And then if they find a chair and they're like, I love this, but I wish it was a little bit taller or it had arms on it. And then we present that to them. Then they're like, yeah, but I want to sit in it.
Right.
And so I'm like, well, you sat in something from that vendor. It's on the same scale. It's going to be just as comfortable. These vendors are very consistent with their product. It's going to be just as comfortable and just as, if not better, and more fitting for what you need.
Because you asked for it to be
You asked
a little bit taller or
Right.
a little bit
And so
deeper or to have arms.
optimizing it for you,
Right.
but the comfort level, the density of the foam is the same.
Right.
That's what these companies use. So, there might be a vendor that wasn't comfortable for them. So we're like, okay, you know what? Let's try this, and then we'll find you a perfect chair based on that vendor if you found them comfortable, because it's it's always consistent.
I find that a lot, that I do have certain vendors that I can consistently never question
Yeah.
how comfortable something's
Yeah.
going to be. Gamma specifically is one of them.
Gamma, I think every chair I've ever sat in,
Pretty much every sofa, chair, everything has always been extremely comfortable. And there are certain things with them that personally is that easy, as you're saying, when they sit in the chair and they go, I feel like this is a little deep. I need a pillow behind me. I need something. It's a little deep. Well, they have this one. We know we love their comfort, and I'm not worried about
That's
it
not
being
gonna change.
comfortable. We're just gonna make it a little bit less deep. And because you're 6'7", I'm gonna make it a little bit taller for your back too. Same way with, American leather. There's just a lot of them that have that same consistent comfort no matter what you choose.
They do.
I have listened to your likes. I've watched you sit.
Yeah.
I've seen how comfortable you get if you lean back more, how tall you are. I take all of that in when you sit in something and what you tell me is comfortable and what you tell me is not comfortable. And then I help fit you in the right spot. Kind of like a shoe.
And
Okay, that looks great. You love it. It hurts. It's too high of a heel. I'm going to order you this one because I know what you like. I know what your foot looks like, and we're going to make it perfect for you.
there you
So,
go. Make some fashion interiors.
I have to actually just kind of sidetrack a little bit and ask about that with your fashion sense.
Yeah.
Number one, I know that number one, you're always stunning.
Thank you. As are you.
Thank you.
Are.
And when you bring that in, how important does fashion trends play into furniture trends? So why is it important, do you think, that they talk to each other in your mind? Uh, do the things that are commanded by a fashion industry, like say Versace and Gucci, and does that flow over into the furniture world as far as what's colors that are coming, or if it's more flowy, or if it's softer lines, or if it's harsher lines? Do those play together? And is that important to you to actually bring together?
Very important. I've always found that the clients or the person that wants high-end luxury furniture is also a fan of fashion and fashion trends and what's the latest on the runway and and not just colors and materials, but going back to the curves and you know um soft curves and sofas. We've started seeing that quite a bit, which is
Which I love it.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. And
Yeah.
it used to be just the angular lines and straight straight lines, abstract. Yeah, it's very boxy. Now we're seeing the soft curves. And you see this on the runway. You see, you know, for example, like how a skirt falls, right? And you see, and so a lot of times it's not just we're looking at colors and fabrics, but the way it sits on a person is how we look at furniture.
How it drapes on it, literally, in the
drapes.
same sense.
Right. I've always been fashion is one of my biggest inspirations. It just is. Yes, I love fashion, but I think interiors are just as beautiful. And so, if you're, and I don't think you have to necessarily be a huge fan of like a fashion, but if you're wanting your home to be just as on the same level and just as beautiful, and they kind of go hand in hand. Yeah, I think they do.
I think they do a lot. I think that the industry commands a lot when it comes to, like you were mentioning before, colors.
Yeah.
When it's, mentioning how it falls,
Right.
the shapes, all of the above. You know, for example, this last year, coming out Versace's runway when there was pink and green and there were these colors, yes. You see that, and then it's everywhere, and that's all you can find. So how when a client says, "I can't stand the color pink," how can I be in trend when that's all I can find or when that's all I see everywhere, and I just don't like the look? How do you get around that? When they wanna be fashion forward, they wanna be trendy, they wanna have that beautiful space,
Right.
but it's hard to find. Is you see it everywhere, every showroom they go into, if they're consistently hit with the same color,
Right.
and it's generally not pink right now, obviously.
We need
They
to
may
change
say
that.
things like navy blue.
We need to change
Yes. you see things like navy blue or gray or whatever, and they're like, I hate gray. I never want to see gray again in my entire life, except they keep running into that. So, how would you suggest then for them to feel like they're trendy, like they're up to date, but still they still have timelessness and they
Yeah.
still play in true to what they want and what they love.
To invest in a bold piece of furniture, that's an investment. You could still have your clean monochromatic palette. Then that's when we bring in the artwork and the accessories and maybe wall coverings and, paneling, wallpapers, all of that stuff. And then lighting. Yeah. Lighting is a big thing. Keeping everything kind of consistent and just making sure the client feels comfortable having furniture that's timeless and classic and that just doesn't go out of style, but then bringing it in with pieces that they can change. I think that's a big thing.
Speaking of wallpaper, wall coverings,
Yeah.
wall paneling, things that you're saying right now that I know a lot of people probably ask wallpaper.
I know. And I think people are scared because most people think of wallpaper and they're thinking back to like grass cloth, which grass cloth is back in, I think,
Back
again.
to 1990, flower rimmed emerald green all over the entire home. It's impossible to remove. That's where, my brain initially goes. I personally, too, love wallpaper, and I think that it can be a fantastic accent wall. The things that they've come up with lately are incredible. The way that their textures and the materials that they've used and colors, just bring out so much more in it. But, when you bring that up to somebody, do you hear a lot that they immediate pushback and go, "I don't want wallpaper. I don't want wall paneling is fine." I mean, we know that.
Right.
They see it everywhere. There's every single picture I think of every bed, of every room has some sort of panel, whether it is just a small portion or it's the whole wall.
Yeah.
There is something on there on that background. So, do you get a lot of pushback, or you think people are opening up to it
I
now?
do think people are opening up more to it. And it has a lot to do with kind of going into showrooms or going into, restaurants or hotels that that have it. Wallpaper, I still sometimes will get pushback on if we're trying to go bold or add a little, but that's one of those things I have to kind of just reassure my clients that we can change that. If in 5 years you're like, I don't like this wallpaper anymore, we can change that. And the paneling, that obviously, we wanna you can add it on after, but it's one of those things that I don't wanna say it's become a trend now, but it's very popular. It adds a level of elevation to your house and customization that wallpaper can do that too, but the paneling is, like, just kinda taking it up a step. And you can panel ceilings and, accent walls, or you can do like an entire hallway. There's so much you can do. You can add paneling outdoors, which I think people aren't really used to. And I recently just finished a project and we did a lot of paneling outside on the patio and by the front doors. And it wasn't, until it kind of was rendered for them and they saw it, they were like, oh, yeah, we want that.
Looks really nice.
But when you hear it first, you're like, "Oh, no, we don't,"
I don't need that.
Yeah.
I wanna spend the extra money on that. And so how do you get past that when I know a lot of times when I work with clients that we sometimes face things
Right.
and they prioritize, which is important, because that's one of the big things that, both of us like to be cognizant of and respect
Right.
is budgets. And so when they start taking things down and they say that's not important, so like wall paneling or wallpaper or any of these little extra things, when you look at the entire space afterwards, if you just like, I'm going to spend my money on my sofa and my chair and I have a rug or a coffee table, no rug, whatever it may be, whatever you've kind of restricted it down to. How do you talk to them about the importance of the accessory, the earring, the necklace, the bracelet that you're wearing,
Right.
the shoes that you're wearing? How do you talk to them about that while maintaining the respect for their budget, but also not bringing them something that when they walk into the room, they don't have that same sort of love and joy and just overall peace of the whole space looking complete. How do you get past that?
In the beginning, it's a little tough. I've always found that every client I've ever had, are like, they push back on, we don't need this plant, or we don't need artwork here, we don't need accessories on the table. And then when it's all put together, they're like, oh, okay, this complete the design. Because you can have a sofa, you can have a rug, and you can have a chair, and then you've got these bare walls, it's not a complete design. It's not cozy, it's not comforting. You walk in and you see pieces of furniture, but it's not homey.
Right.
And that's where a lot of these accents and additional things come in. And I actually do go into projects and I tell clients, when we get to this part where we're detailing out, that's what I always call it, detailing out. Just kind of let me take charge on that. And if you don't, if you walk in and you're like, I absolutely hate that piece, fine, we'll remove it.
Right.
I don't think I've ever had that happen.
Yeah.
It's almost like, we'll have a room sit there for completely complete with all the furnishings for a month. And then I go in and we're like detailing out the space. And then they walk in and they're like, oh my God, this looks like a completely different house. Because it just adds that extra level of comfort and just completion.
Now, do you sometimes do that for, say, a photo shoot where you bring in things to stage the space, so to speak, to show them what it would be like all together?
Yes.
One of the things that I've said to everybody is when they get very particular about the little things like, I don't like that plant, I don't
Right.
like this, I don't like that. You're not supposed to love everything because everything is not supposed to be the star. You need stuff to just be out of the corner of your eye. You need that little piece to balance it, to
Yeah.
give it some structure or to give more of a straighter line because I've got a ton of curves around the
Yeah.
space. You're very calculated in your design
Here.
aspect that every single piece means something for a certain reason.
Right.
So sometimes you do show them via staging, like through photography and stuff like that.
Just to add that color, we needed something with color in a specific shade, and we would do that just to have that look. And it meant, and I'll have clients that are like, well, that doesn't really mean much to us. But there's a couple of pieces. Let us just add those to again balance out the space because we need another book or we need another little piece to kind of just finish off the entire room. And everything else we'll make sure it's custom for them and mean something to them. But then there might be a few pieces that
They make it come together.
it makes it come together.
So, absolutely, in talking about that and every little aspect, because all of the small important things do matter,
They do.
but there is a big difference between design and decorating. And it's funny to me because honestly, when I think of how do I decorate my house, I think of, well, you decorate your house for Christmas. You decorate your house for Halloween.
We don't decorate it down.
Yes,
That's what that is.
yes. There are decorative aspects
Mm-hmm.
like lighting, like wallpaper, like books on a table or a vase or a plant or an architectural mirror with lighting behind it, bookshelves, books on the bookshelf, all those that are specifically and purposefully placed.
Right.
So how is that different from what you do and what you offer as an overall designer and designing the space, and it's a full comprehensive space
Right.
versus I need assistance with decorating my house.
Huge difference. And been asked to go in after a home is built because they just didn't think that we would come in before they start building. It is very, very important because when you're building a home, you're custom building a home, the structure, the elements that go into the actual build itself are where design really comes into play. Yes, we finish it off with furnishings and beautiful artwork and all of that, but the design, it has to kind of be a cohesive flow throughout the house. So if we're just, if somebody's like, if you're in, you're like, Jaimie, we want you guys to come in. I have a kitchen or a bedroom that can you decorate it? I mean, we could, but you could do that, too. There's not to be really have it designed. You would have called us in when you started building the home, and you have, so we could have had, whether it's slabs on the wall or your fireplace or even carpet choices and tile and all of those elements, they all kind of go hand in hand. And I think people don't realize that when we start working on a project, and as I'm sure, like even with Cantoni, we don't just build the house and do all those selections. We kind of start both at the same time because we want it all to flow. So, we'll start furniture selections midway through our build because we want everything to kind of flow together. It's kind of like that one kitchen, that had the green slab. And we were like, well, we were already working on furniture and we chose green dining chairs.
Yeah.
Because we wanted it to flow,
Tie together.
tie together. Versus if you're doing one and then the other after, just kind of, or if the client's selecting all of their finishes on their own, they're not like, oh my God, we need help with the house. It's not what we wanted. It's not modern enough. It's not luxe enough for us. Can you help now?
Back ordered now. I have to reselect.
Oh yeah,
there's
which we all know about everything being back
a
ordered.
ton of challenges that arise when you're building and you're doing it on your own. And that's why it's super important to have a designer that's involved from the very beginning, because there's ways that you navigate. I've personally been able to watch you
Right.
navigate with certain things, and spoken with your builders and spoken with many of your pool installers and those people, and helping all of that stuff come together. What do we need with flush mount and concrete? What do I need for my bunk beds, installed on a wall? All of those little aspects that to a homeowner they may not see.
Oh yeah.
And if they were asked that same question, it would be blank stare. I have no idea what to do. Somebody help me
Right.
in all of this. I kind of refer to it sometimes as the DIY mindset, as in this is very easy. I can do this. I see this. It's beautiful. It's gorgeous. I can do it myself for, this is offered for $3,000, but I can do it myself for 6,000. Usually ends up being is that you end up spending more time, more hassle, more work,
Not done.
and it's still not done, or it's still not done right, because there's all these challenges that have, you know, arise over the process of doing it, that you have to kind of go in and re-navigate, and then it's too overwhelming and you can't handle it. And so one of the biggest things is, and how we met, is that we can work together in a variety of different aspects. And a lot of times it's hard for two designers to ever say that.
Eh?
That there's usually a kind of, no, I wouldn't say a competition or a power play per
Yeah.
se by any stretches of the means, but if you're ever going to team up with somebody, you, because let's be honest, you need help. Like,
A lot.
nobody can
Yeah.
do this
No.
alone. I mean, even us having just a few minutes out of our day to talk today is so very rare.
Right.
Like, a homeowner trying to do it on their own in the DIY mindset
Right.
is going to get overwhelmed, and they're going to come and they're going to ask for help. The accessories into the lighting, all of that. How do you do all of that even if you have an assistant? How can you help make that a little bit easier for you, but also let the client know that they can trust that who you've chosen
Right.
is somebody that's on the same wavelength as you, that you guys are all working together, that it's not going to be like, well, I picked this and she picked that, and then my assistant did the 4 extra guest bedrooms because that don't matter as much.
Yeah.
How do they know? How do you make them feel comfortable? And how do you feel comfortable? How do you sleep? How do you go to your children's choir practices and all of that when you have so much to do on one single project because you don't have a single project ever going on at one single time. So you have to have some sort of reprieve there somewhere. And how do you do that?
Cantoni. And and I'm not just not just saying that. There are relationships with reps like yourself. Whether it comes to lighting, furniture. I mean, there's so many times you've saved me. I'm like, and what did we choose for here? And you're like, give me a second, look it up. Um, but to the point where also my builders and my pool developers, they have a relationship. They've met you or talked to you, and they know, well, if we have a question about this, we can call Ann directly. It's a huge help because there's certain things I actually I wouldn't know. And, you know, kind of going back to the bunk beds. We had these bunk beds, and that actually, just to backtrack a little bit, that's
Mhm.
where interior design versus decorating,
Yeah.
because to install these bunk beds that we get, they're these luxury Italian Lago bunk beds. But to install them, we have to have already set up to where there's, backing, and it's going to be able to hold, the wall is going to be able to hold it.
This was a huge conversation. It's a beautiful design, and
I mean, it's
it's
floating
a
bunk bed.
floating bunk bed.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just stunning, and you see it, and it's like, this is gonna be so amazing
Yeah.
when we see it put together, and then you go, "Are the walls solid? Are they concrete?"
Right.
I called the builder. I think did I spoke with him maybe 4 or 5
Yeah,
times
you
when he
did.
finally just came back to me and said, "Trust me."
Yeah.
I was like, "Okay, I trust you, but I trust you, but."
Yeah.
Because there are those things that I know personally that need to happen, it does. The wall needs to be blocked if it's not made out of concrete, solid. I mean, when we're talking Italian furniture, especially things that are wall mounted,
Right.
they are actually made specifically for solid walls or concrete.
Right.
And of course, we don't do a lot of that here in the United States. So when we're taking a vendor or a company that is largely based out of another country, where their construction is quite a bit different. I mean, even Mexico, that's mostly like concrete walls, so it's no big deal. Sure, get a concrete screw and we'll just slap that baby up on there. It's no big deal. You slap it up on sheetrock drywall, and it's gonna come right back down again.
And a word.
So there are a lot of concerns that happen with
Right.
that. Those sort of aspects of it are great, and I love being a part of that, being able to provide that back end anxiety, but confirmation for both of us
Right.
that we can be at ease, that we're fully aware that this is going to work for us. But I know it's important to me no matter what. When I first met you,
Right.
it was actually through a mutual friend of
Mhm.
ours, and to me, it was kind of like she kinda just knew and that these 2 would work well
Right.
together, and, like, you guys just call and run and, you guys just talk for a second, and we probably had the same sort of
We
conversation
did.
the very,
We did.
very first time, which is funny. I have to interject a small little story. I don't know if you're aware of this, but I actually got the email from you, and it came in through my other folder or my junk spam folder. And it's like, you may not know this under it, may be spam, all of the
Uh-huh.
above. And it was, we have a mutual client. We've been
Yeah.
into Cantoni before. I'm a designer. I would love to work with you.
Mhm.
We have a 13,000 square foot project, and I'd love you to assist with me because I'm not in town. And I was referred your name. If I could set up a call with you at some point in time. And I'm like, please. Like, in my mind, I know that this just can't be real. I mean, everything about it's like
Right.
too good to be true. It's for film. I was like all of the above. And it came in and said,
Yeah.
this may potentially be spam, just of course firewalls and everything like that.
Yeah.
So I'm like, well, let's just take the chance and
Right.
let's just call and let's just talk. And I think we did. The very first conversation that we had was like probably an hour and a half or 2 hours
Yeah.
long. And we're like, okay, I love you. What time are you gonna come see me? It was effortless. So it was definitely sort of planned that that could work. But one of the important things being a representative of Cantoni,
Right.
being a designer at Cantoni, which I very much have my own design style.
Mhm.
I have, my favorite colors. I have my favorite trends and my lesser favorite trends
Right.
that you just kind of go along with. And you're like,
Sure, I'll do that.
fabulous. I love it. When I'm working specifically with a designer, I absolutely always want to make sure, and what I've specifically done with you as well, not just because I've researched you, I respect you, I get along with you,
Right.
you become a very good friend of mine, not because of those aspects, but how I would work with any other designer that I would come across in the future is that you are the person that they trust.
Right.
Circling back to where you're asking for that trust from the client, that I'm going to give you the best direction. I've chosen somebody that's going to give me the best direction when it comes to floating bunk beds, when it comes to what colors, what styles these come in, and me knowing a little bit more in a sense about some vendors. I may have seen that. I don't have it on the floor anymore. I sat in it and it was horrible.
Yeah.
Don't sell it to them. We're not doing it. It's
Right.
just uncomfortable.
Right.
And whatever that may be,
Which we've had to do that.
we had to. We've had to. It's like, I love this. No, 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 no. You don't want that.
Yeah.
Or we'll be walking past this. Keep walking. Just keep walking. Because I know your clients. I know what it comes in, the colors, all of the above. And I try, no matter what, to always respect that. And I know a lot of our other designers also do that. They want to make sure that, yes, if I interject an opinion, yes, I'm an expert in my field as well as you are. Although we may vary slightly differently. You and I are pretty, I don't know, on
Pretty
point.
insane.
Yeah, we're pretty much the same no matter what. But I always want to make sure that, as well as the other designers at our store, that regardless, it is still at the end of the day, you are the person that they trust.
Right.
And so you're not in town and your clients come to see me and we have a list of things that we need to look at. And we're walking past and they're like, they love this sectional. And I tell you they love that sectional and you go, no. Or vice versa. Like, I'm just bringing on the information, or Jaimie would like you to see
Right.
G
You want
four
this-
fabrics. Please choose which one you like the best, and then coming back to that with you. And then I may say, as I was working with them, I found that they kept leaning towards XYZ, or they kept loving this. They kept sitting in things that were this. They loved this style. Let's maybe think about that. Or that vendor. That vendor is going to have those colors that they like. So we talk them into, looking at this part of it, even though it's something we may not have thought of before. One of the things that I truly, truly love doing when I'm working with you is us, number one, we are pretty in sync on things,
Very much.
but at the same sense, we can still have the client's best interest and still at the end of the day, your best interest is in the sense of the trust aspect of it. Speaking of working with Cantoni, what's some of your favorite things that you've loved? Because, honestly, I've seen in all of the work that you've done, I've seen so many different aspects, like sprinkled in there. Even just something as minute as wallflowers.
Yeah.
That I look at a picture and I was, well, there it is, and there's this, and I see all these small little pieces of us everywhere, and I say us, as in we have a large, large, large library of vendors that can be somewhat overwhelming to the normal
Amazing
person.
ones.
I love them. I love having
my
that.
favorites.
My little Pandora's boxes, as I like to call it, because I love having options and
Right.
being able to dabble in all of those.
You already know my overall style because anything that the Jaimie Anand brand, like we put our name on, it has aesthetic. It has a flow. It's, kind of consistent. You're very aware of that. So I know you always keep that kind of in the back of your head. And so I feel comfortable just, hey, the clients, I know we're almost done with this house, but we still need to finish this one space and we can't make it out. Can you just handle it? I'll send my clients in. And I truly trust that because this is what you do and you'll present it, show them. I think I've told you, I'm like, and I trust you, just pick the color. You probably know what's going to go better. And you're like, Jaimie, I know you like this one, but in person, this,
I know you better.
I know
And
you
you
don't, and you don't like this.
Yeah.
And we've had this.
Yeah.
And thank you, God, because I'm like, if we would have went with what I just kind of looked at on FaceTime or what your pictures.
Yeah.
But I was like, you know what? I'm going to trust Ann. And I'm glad I do but that it takes a lot off of our plate, and it just kind of, you've been in again, that's the other thing. We didn't touch, but you come in at the very beginning of these projects. It's not like I kind of am like, hey, I need, X, Y, and Z midway through. So you're very aware of
The whole
the
project.
whole project. Doing all of these, and we're getting all of these pieces, and you're able to lay them out, render them out, and such a blessing.
And that's the part. I think we talked about this the other night. It's my favorite part, the renditions,
Yeah.
the helping the client visualize. And to me, while I have my own clients, and there's a lot of times she'll call me and I'm like, girl, I'm numb, crazy right now.
To you.
I'm not going to be asleep until probably 4 a.m. today. But I see you as my client. And you laugh because you know that's true.
You do.
But,
You do.
but I see you as my client. So not as you're a designer that I'm competing with, that I have to interject, that I have to fight for the client or anything. You're my client at the end of the day.
Yeah. And
You know?
oh, yeah.
And your client is your husband, your spouse, your significant other. Okay. So that's the person that signs off on it. You're the person I want to please.
Yeah.
Okay. That's why it's important to me to provide you everything you need to be able to have that success, to gain that trust
Yeah.
from them. Because if I don't provide that to you, if you just called and I was your order taker, if you just called and said, I want the Positano and I want it exactly as I show here, and I might want to flip directions of that, but other than that, I think it's fabulous. It's my duty to you as my client to then come back in and say, I see what you're seeing and I see the whole room and we've been working on this. And that classic, beautiful fireplace wall that you did in the black and white. And this orange that it actually this is going to look like Halloween gone bad all year long. Like you need that beautiful red tangerine out of it. And so that's my duty to you, is to bring that to you. It's not to fight you. Now, if you were to come back and you'd be like, I love Halloween orange, and I tell us what's happening, I'd be like, you better believe it. I'm going to start typing that up for you. But I will still,
know me.
I know better. I know what your visions are. But in the same aspect, researching and respecting a lot of everything that you've done over the course of the years.
Thank you.
Which is far more incredible than a lot of people could ever imagine. How long is it been? 10 years?
10 years.
10 years?
Yeah.
That you've opened your own firm.
Coming up on 10 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So
The amount that has happened, you've been part of quite a bit of it.
but not even anywhere remotely close to part of it, because I was even speaking with my mother the other day, and I told her, I said, and I sent her a presentation and a lot of your pictures and stuff, and she's just like, I'm blown away. I'm like, I'm blown away, not at myself, but at this woman whom I have come to know and come to love and cherish as a designer, as a friend. But to see the extra stuff, the extra amount of work and everything that you've done, there's a lot of stuff that I do know. But a lot of stuff that's buried deep down in there, I'm like, wow, you spoke on television before. And, you did a lighting expo where you're an expert, and for talking about upcoming lighting aspects and designs of
like
lighting.
my favorite thing.
Well, I love you've taught me to love lighting.
Gorgeous.
Yes.
That's why I keep looking at them like, this is just gorgeous. Lighting makes every space.
Yeah.
It does. It makes every space. It's kind of just, I don't want to say, everyone says like the jewelry and but it literally could change the entire feeling of the room.
Even just briefly, what's coming up next year, or what are you looking forward to?
Good. some collaborations that are just, on the horizon.
I know that you're delving out a little bit into other country and stuff like that and just kind of broadening those horizons. I'm
Be
sure
heading out of the country and this year, working on something fun. So
it has been lovely to have you. But I have one last question for you. What does design mean to you?
personality. Design should always show someone's personality. So it could be beautiful. It could, we could be in a space that's just stunning and magazine worthy and, could be on TV, but design should speak to the person. So if it doesn't speak to you, it's not design.
Make sure that you're in it no
Yeah.
matter what.
Yeah, make sure it shows your personality, and that's what design means.